Well. Here you are. You for some reason clicked on episode 2 of learning about retail. At this point, you got to be locked in, guys. If you aren't wanting to read about retail, you wouldn't be here for a second episode. But hey, I'm actually doing this one specifically for Hunter Burroughs. If you guys don't know who Hunter Burroughs is, you should by now. Actually, there's a photo of him on screen. But yeah, he was begging me to do a second episode, so here I am to teach about retail. Even though the guy really teaching is Irving Burstiner, who I last episode incorrectly pronounced Bustiner, which it does not say Bustiner, it actually says Burstiner. Yeah, we can flip it around there. Yeah, exactly. Burstiner, not Bustiner. All right, so last time we talked about should you go into business, and it was given some thinking about this is what the process would kind of be like. This is what I would need. This is what I need to think about, plan about. This is who I should be, what kind of qualities I should have. And today we are reading chapter 2, which is how to choose the right retail field for you. So we're only 17 pages in, on page 17. But I'm going to lower this so that you guys can actually see the book. And it's not so weirdly like aerospace satellite camera. Gotta get some good old Cheez-Its before, Anyway, let's start reading. So I know I had 5 minutes of just yapping about on the last episode, but today, sorry guys, I'm just gonna get straight into the reading. I'm sure some of you will be happy about that. Right here, chapter 2, how to choose the right retail field for you. Retailing is an exciting way of life for the more than 20 million people who earn their livelihood in this sector of our economy. It's fun for consumers too. Just watch the faces and behavior of the throngs visiting our shopping malls, especially on Saturdays and at pre-holiday times. No other type of business is as familiar to us. Retailers provide the goods that you and I need, from food, drink, and clothing to furniture, home furnishing, appliances, and other necessities, as well as an unending stream of luxury products. Each year, some 500,000 or so new business enterprises are launched. At least 1/3 of these are retail operations. Most of these new entrepreneurs risk their capital, invest their time, and make an extraordinary effort to open some kind of a store. All are attracted by the challenges of building successful retail businesses of their own. The ventures run the gamut from clothing boutiques and health food stores to the more prosaic groceries and superettes, hardware stores, coffee shops, bars, and so on. The amount of Shakespearean Old English words you can use in a retail book, of all books. What is a gamut? Put that word on screen. G-A-M-U-T. Gamut? Put the definition of whatever that is on screen. I'm not going to know until I edit this because I'm too lazy to look it up now. And a prosaic grocery? Is that like a dinosaur? And a superette? Have you heard of a superette? Maybe I'm just autistic because I've never heard of any of these. Anyway, let's get back to reading. Among the more recent innovations on the scene are yogurt stores, cosmetiques, computer stores, and computer repair shops, and videotape rental libraries. The diversity of types is amazing. So clearly this book was made ages ago if it's saying the more recent things on the scene are froyo and computer repair shop and VHS rentals. So clearly this is an old book because those are definitely not new on the scene in the slightest. Most retailing involves buying merchandise from wholesalers and or manufacturers and reselling these goods directly to consumers at a profit, of course. Each year, this vital sector of our economy accounts for about 38% of our gross national product. From 1973 to 1981, annual retail sales in the United States nearly doubled from slightly under $512 billion to just over the $1 trillion mark. By 1999, yearly retail sales had climbed to just a shade under $3 trillion. Today, and keep in mind today is whenever this book was written, which I'll actually take a look at right now. When he says today, he's referring to 2001. So 24 years ago, as of 2025 when I'm making this. Anyway, today, more than 2 million retail establishments of all kinds are in operation in the United States. Most are store retailers, though other types are found, such as mail order houses, automatic merchandising, machine operators, and companies engaged in direct door-to-door selling. All right. Then we have a little table here. We can flip that around. Hopefully you guys can see that because I can't see the screen at all right now. But yeah, it's just talking about retail sales over the years up until 1998. So not super relevant, but I guess you can see the changes there. So then we get to this new heading, which is retailing is primarily small store activity. Most of us are overwhelmed by the dazzling array of department stores, discount houses, and other mass merchandisers, national and regional drugstore, variety store, and off-price chains, supermarkets, and other large-scale operations that seem to dominate the retail sector. We tend to forget that we're primarily a nation of small, independent merchants. In fact, most stores are small, both in size and in sales volume. Our typical store is a small operation, usually run by the owner alone or by a husband and wife team. Such small enterprises naturally lack the substantial resources, purchasing skill, and sophistication of planning and control techniques of the large-scale retailers. Where there are employees, they're few in number. 1 or 2 may be part-time workers. The store size is, of course, related to the type of establishment. Furniture outlets, for example, require much more space than shoe stores or neighborhood groceries. A total area of less than 2,000 square feet is characteristic of most store types. Yet these small stores show surprising strength and resiliency in the face of competition from the more impersonal large-scale retailers. They offer the consumer convenient locations, prompt attention, more personalized service, a warmer atmosphere, and an often broader and deeper selection of merchandise in their particular lines. Even so, it's not easy for an independent retailer to survive these days in an economy besieged from time to time by recessionary and inflationary conditions. Nevertheless, most small store owners manage to make additional sales gains, pay their bills on time, and extract a comforting rate of return on their investment. Yes, there's always room for the right kind of store. Geographic shifts of large numbers of consumers are characteristic of our mobile populations. Stores need to follow people wherever they move. The population is still growing, although at a more measured pace than in prior decades. This increase means more mouths to feed, bodies to clothe, and households to furnish. Fashions, changing lifestyles, increasing leisure, and technological advances all contribute to the need for new variations on old retailing themes. Finally, openings in retailing continually appear as established merchants retire, sell their businesses, or close down because of poor management practices or changes in the local environment. You never know. The small store launched today may become the largest chain operation in its field within the next decade. Hey dude, your anime figurine company? You could outbeat GameStop. Hey, didn't GameStop go out of business? Maybe they didn't. Our local store closed down and they packed up and left. But I think GameStop's still in business. But hey, go ahead, start selling your anime figures. I don't know why that was the first thing I thought of. It's probably not a very hard field to get into, to be fair. Anyway, after that, we reach a new heading. And this heading says, opening a retail store, advantages and disadvantages. Store retailing offers you a kind of business much different from all others, one in which you get to meet lots of people. The retail store is a cash and carry operation. The day you open your store to the public, you begin taking in money at your cash register. Capital requirements are characteristically lower than for either manufacturing or wholesaling. The resultant ease of entry is a salient feature of store retailing, and it probably accounts for the large number of new stores launched every year. Another likely reason is that we consumers are more familiar with retail stores than with all other business types, by virtue of having shopped in them ever since we can remember. Anyone can decide to go into retailing with a comparatively modest investment. Running a store isn't at all complicated. The trick is to make a success of it. And then we get to a new heading. It says, what about the negatives? So we're one of the negatives of retailing. Perhaps we should get all the drawbacks, which you might have heard about, out on the table right now before you commit time, energy, and money to a retail enterprise. Opening your own store means giving up your job with its steady income, holidays with pay, vacations, and the opportunity for advancement. You'll have to exchange all this and perhaps much more for the chance to gamble with your savings and maybe with borrowed capital too, with the odds really stacked against you. Hard work and long hours, often including nights and Saturdays, the busiest day of the week for most retailers. Profits measured in pennies on the dollar when they finally come in. Months and months without even a minimum salary in the majority of cases. Lots of busy work like checking off deliveries, putting stock away into bins, housekeeping, ordering merchandise, waiting on customers, lugging cartons, and changing interior and window displays. Concern over the possibility of shoplifters ripping you off and worrying about burglaries or even worse, armed robbery. You betcha. Probably not at the anime store though. Well, maybe. No, they'd probably crack out their kung fu or something. If none of these trade-offs frighten you, and if you would still like to try your hand at being a shopkeeper, then full steam ahead, and good luck. And then we get, this is just kind of, there's a lot of tables in this one, this chapter, so it's technically shorter, but with the tables that take up most of the page, it's the same amount of pages, but there's a lot of tables in here. So I'll just show you this one, and then we can flip it around. Hopefully that's in the screen. There you go. So these numbers are from 1996, which isn't super, they're flipped around, which isn't super relevant, but it's just showing like what type of businesses and like how many there were in 1996. Hopefully that was on screen. I don't know if it was. And then we get to the heading, an excursion into the world of store retailing. Table 2.2, the one we just saw, lists the more popular types of retailing and how many of each were in operation during 1996. Note that the leading two, eating places and grocery stores, numbered 497,700 units in all. The two accounted for more than 31% of the nation's nearly 1.6 million retail establishments with payroll. The earlier mentioned ease of entry into retailing can be a disadvantage rather than an advantage for the new retail entrepreneur. As you no doubt know, a high proportion of new enters are out of business within a few years after their startup. Small business consultants believe the percentage of retail closings during the first few years of operation is higher than in other types of business. This contention is supported in part by the statistics in Table 2.3. Here you have the results of the analysis by the Dun & Bradstreet Corporation of businesses that failed in 1997, both by business type and by the age of the enterprise. Note the high early failure rate for the retail trade. More than 36 out of every 100 retail failures had been in operation for 3 years or less. Moreover, some 51.8% of these failures occurred during their first 5 years in business. Also of interest to the aspiring retailer are the details presented in Table 2.4. Among other things, they indicate that the economic and finance factors accounted for well over 8 out of every 10 retail failures in 1992. And then there's these two tables here. And the first one you can see at the top here is just going over how many years they were in business and their failure rate, basically, how many failures of business there was. And then the second table, as you can see under it, this big one, you can flip that around. That's just talking about the reason. Why did they fail? So I guess they have determined why the business has failed, and that was why. So, all right, and then we get to our next heading, which is non-store retailing. Not all retailing is store retailing. In your journeys through the countryside, you've noted the occasional roadside stand that offers ripe tomatoes, fresh corn by the bushel, freshly laid eggs, and other agriculture or date. Not all retailing is store retailing. In your journeys through the countryside, you have noted the occasional roadside stand that offers ripe tomatoes, fresh corn by the bushel, freshly laid eggs, and other agricultural or dairy products. Or else woven mats, towels, souvenirs, and novelties, country fresh ham, or 100 other items. Farther down the road, you can buy grapefruits, cantaloupes, and even giant plush teddy bears and other toy animals from a produce wagon or a truck. Sometimes not even a stand or a truck is in sight, simply a mound of watermelons or other sizable product topped with a huge for sale sign that can be easily seen from a distance. Although they operate without a storefront, these sellers are retailers nevertheless, since they all sell directly to you, the consumer. While there are a number of different types of non-store retailers, such as the flea marketer and the peddler, most such firms fall into one of three categories. Number 1, mail order houses. Number 2, direct selling firms. And number 3, automatic merchandising. So vending or machine operated businesses. Selling products or services directly to consumers via the U.S. Postal Service is an activity that dates back to the post-Civil War period, when firms such as Montgomery Ward and Sears, Roebuck and Company initiated this then novel approach. Since then, of course, those early mail order retailers have grown into giants among today's store retailers. Most department stores now conduct mail order selling activities as a profitable sideline to their in-store selling. Many chain store operations, big and small, count on direct mail efforts to bring in additional business. So do some small-scale independents. Printed inserts, flyers, brochures, and catalogs from all these store retailers bombard the public continually. All such companies are omitted from the Department of Commerce's published statistics on mail order houses. Enterprises included in this category are just that, firms that conduct business primarily through the mails. These include general merchandise houses, companies that sell specialty goods of all kinds, novelty firms, various types of clubs, books, records, tapes, gifts, and so on. This segment of the economy has displayed robust growth despite sharp increases in labor and mailing costs. From 1972 to 1987, the number of mail order houses nearly tripled. Over the same 15-year period, total sales for the category increased sharply from $4.6 billion to $20.8 billion. And that gets us to direct selling firms. Some of the more recognizable names in the field are Good Humor, Avon, Fuller Brush, and Tupperware. I've heard of Tupperware, and that's about it. House-to-house canvassing, party plans, and route sales are among the techniques used to sell almost everything. Dairy products, baked goods, soft drinks, hardware, building materials, home furnishing, books, health and beauty aids, and general merchandise. In 1987, there were about 11,000 of these firms with a total sales volume of $7.9 billion. And then lastly, we have automatic vending machine firms. Popularly known as vending machine operators, these companies accounted for nearly 5 cents out of every retail sales dollar taken in 1982. Vending received its greatest impetus during the 1960s, largely as a result of improved technology in the field. What is impetus? Put that on screen. Imp and then E-T-U-S. Impetus. Impetus. What is that? Put the definition. I still don't know what it is because I'm too lazy to look it up, but that's actually crazy. The number of vending machine companies doubled between 1972 and 1987. The 24,000 firms in operation in 1987 accounted for some $6.3 billion in sales. Once mostly restricted to candy bars and canned sodas, today's coin-operated machines vend hot drinks, soups, milk, ice cream, and snack foods, and an astonishing array of impulse goods and necessities. The machines are usually placed in high-traffic locations, such as subway stations, railroad and bus terminals, office buildings, and bars. And that brings us to another big heading, which is choosing the right retail area, a course of action. Almost everyone who wants to get into store retailing is determined to find the right opportunity. This desire is natural. It also makes sense. Yet what a difficult task it can be to draw a bead on just what or where this opportunity might be. You may recall one or more occasions when you shopped in a crowded store and exclaimed to a companion or to yourself, "Wow, what a business." You may have even thought fleetingly at the time, "What I wouldn't give to own this place." On the other hand, there are probably times when you find yourself commiserating with store owners while they complained of poor business. Situations of the first kind tend to impel store seekers toward their particular type, while memories of the second type of encounter might turn them away. And then we have a subheading, some sensible guidelines for you. Some fashion-conscious and forward-looking retailers are attracted to high-fashion apparel stores, jewelry boutiques, and stores that sell quality furniture and or home furnishings. Others may be interested in antique shops, bowling alleys, sporting goods stores, or beauty salons, mainly because they relish the atmospheres of such places. Still others, convinced there's more security in selling staple merchandise, look for retail enterprises that offer simple basics or necessities, such as groceries or dry goods store. How should you go about choosing among the endless variety of shops? For one thing, you should select a field you'll enjoy. After all, you're planning to spend many years working in that environment. Thus, the key question is, in which types of stores would I like to work? There's another significant aspect to consider. It has to do with the amount of money you intend to invest in your business, and whether it's your own or other people's money. Some retail lines require more initial capital than others. For instance, if you plan to launch a full-service restaurant, you'll need financing for remodeling and decorating the premises, and perhaps for purchasing the building itself, for kitchen equipment and utensils for tables and chairs and so on. A third consideration is the extent of your preparation for the business. Your chances for success are significantly improved if you have had prior experience in the particular line or trade. So basically get a job at the store and then you'll be like, this is a fire store. I want to own it. And then you'll be like, now you know what you want to do. Or maybe you sign up for some job. You're like, well, maybe I like this. I better try it out, and you sign up, get a job, apply at Twiddly-Dink's Teeth of Dinosaurs factory where they sell, Moses's teeth or something. And you don't like it because the atmosphere sucks and nobody's buying dinosaur bones. And then you would know that's not the field you want to get into, And that's kind of a weird example, but you never know what's out there. I'm sure that store exists. Lastly, and perhaps most important, the success or failure of your retail enterprise may well depend on your choice of location. And that brings us to another heading, more common approaches. Retailers to-be gravitate toward one kind of store or another by following different routes. Let's examine some of these routes, while keeping in mind that alternative avenues are proposed later in the chapter. Open up the type of store in which you have worked. If money is no problem, buy an established business from someone else, on favorable terms, of course. Again, if the capital is available and you would like to cut your risk of losing your initial investment sharply, open a reputable franchise outlet. If your capital is limited, search for a store that requires a smaller investment. Try a newer type of retail business on the assumption that the field is still wide open. Open up the type of store in which you have worked. You may have worked in retailing on a part-time basis while going through school, for instance, or even as a full-time employee. If you have, you're probably familiar with the type of store in which you worked, the fixtures and the decor. You may also know the work inside and out, the details of merchandise selection, stock rotation, doing displays, scheduling employees, and setting store hours, the proper selling techniques, and so forth. After all your on-the-job preparation, what would be a more natural application of your talents than to open such a store for yourself in another location? Bear 2 points in mind, though. It may have taken your former employee 5, 10, or more years to build that business up to the level you found it while you're working it. Opening a fascia mile of the store somewhere else is no guarantee that it will do as well as the original. No two areas are quite alike in the extent of their trading areas, in the local population mix, quantity and quality, in the character of the competition, and in many other factors. Also, you represent a different quantity from your previous employer. Put fascia smile on the screen. Fascia mile. There it is. IMILE. What is that? That's actually the craziest word I've ever looked at. Put the definition right there too. What is this guy talking about in this chapter? That's actually a crazy word to use. He must have gone to Oxford Dictionary and looked for the synonym of some random word, and he's like, that one sounds smart. That's not English, bro. Some kinds of retailing call for specific knowledge or expertise. Let's suppose, for example, you've had experience in a successful drugstore and you would like to open one of your own. As you know, the new store must be supervised under state law by a licensed pharmacist. You'll therefore have to either hire a pharmacist or perhaps take one on as a partner in your business. Even launching an antique shop without a working knowledge of antiques isn't easy. Not if you wanted to succeed in business, that is. Some store types call for technical skills or professional preparations. Beauty salons, electrical supply stores, and plumbing fixture outlets, for example. Others require special licenses, liquor stores, restaurants, bars, and so forth. And then we have a table 2.5. Okay, so this is just a table that shows just the retail franchise types. So we can flip that around. So yeah, it's just showing the types of retail in those ancient years that it has as examples. 1988 is the newest. So I don't know why this book is so ancient. That's probably why he's using the most New King James words ever. Anyway, next subtopic, buy an established business. Some people prefer moving into retailing via another person's established operation. This move is generally safer than starting a brand new enterprise. The business may be of any type as long as it appears to have potential. Here, several cautions are in order. Many individuals buy businesses that aren't faring well. They're confident that they'll be able to do better than the previous owners. This assumption may or may not be true. Ego is often at play here. More than likely, the current owner knows far more about the ins and outs of his or her business than you do, and has much more hands-on experience at it too. Next sub-point, open a reputable franchised outlet. As you can see in table 2.5, the table we just looked at, the total annual volume of franchise sales in the United States more than quintupled between 1970 and 1988. Over the same period, the number of franchises went up by 28.5%. The most notable growth among retail franchises has been in restaurants and convenience stores. As for the non-food retailers, many types are now available. Yarn stores, dry cleaning establishments, bookstores, instant print shops, jeans shops, stores that sell automotive parts and supplies, and pharmacies. Retail franchises are treated in Chapter 3, where some of the more popular franchisors are listed together with names, addresses, and telephone numbers of their home offices and other salient details. Put the definition of salient on screen, because I don't know what that is either. Maybe I'm the only one that's never heard of salient. Typically, responsible franchisors see to it that investors in their outlets have every possible chance to succeed. The success rate in the franchising field generally is reputed to be around 90%. Yet this route to retail management has several major drawbacks. You usually need a fairly substantial investment for most of the reputable franchises. You're required to pay royalties on your sales for the life of your contract, and you must follow the franchisor's guidelines and are therefore not entirely your own boss. And then we get to our next sub-point. Search for a type that requires a smaller investment. Most retail enterprises require minimum amounts of capital for 1 or 2 months rent in advance and a security deposit for utility deposits, for cash registers, and the like. Requirements for the decor, for fixturation, and for equipment may vary tremendously from one type of store to the next. The investment in inventory, however, is the largest part of one's total investment in the majority of cases. Are there retail businesses that call for a comparatively small inventory? If you cull through a list of many types of retail enterprises, you'll find quite a few. Among those that come readily to mind are plant shops, bicycle stores, instant print shops, soft ice cream and frozen yogurt stores, used book exchanges, donut and coffee places, and florists. And then our final subpoint is try a newer type of retail business. Excitement and novelty are the strengths of certain newer retail types. Both these qualities account for the extensive word-of-mouth advertising that follows their appearance in a neighborhood or shopping center. Moreover, because they're relatively few in number, you need not to be concerned about oversaturation. Examples of such businesses include costume jewelry boutiques, cookie shops, health drink stands, sun tanning parlors, computer repair stores, and fast food salad bars. Now, this was in 1988, supposedly published in 2001. Those are everywhere. Those are completely saturated. So I don't know what he's talking about. New types pop up all the time. There's always a chance that the public will come to accept this kind of store with open arms, and that the one outlet you open today may grow rapidly into a profitable chain store operation. And our next heading, some alternate suggestions. Why limit yourself to the customary approaches in choosing a store type? Other more unusual avenues are worth exploring. Read through the methods outlined below. At the very least, you'll be compelled to think more about the subject. You may even come up with a valuable idea or two. And then our subpoint is the safety in numbers philosophy. To many people, it makes sense to search for a store type that's popular with consumers. Popular, in this sense, is equivalent to common or frequently found. Advocates of this approach tell themselves, if so many people own stores of this type, they must be profitable. So how can I go wrong? There's a corollary to this thought. Since our population continues to grow, proportionately more of these popular stores will be needed than other types. Refer again to Table 2.2 for a listing of the most frequently found retail establishments. As you can see, the 5 most numerous types are, and then it has basically the table that we read earlier. Eating places is the highest, grocery stores, drinking places, auto and home supply stores, and then drug and propriety stores are at the bottom. A possible fallacy in this thinking is, of course, that there may already be too many of these retail businesses in existence, that the marketplace might be oversaturated. We've all seen neighborhoods where one of 2 or 3 supermarkets, for instance, has closed down simply because the area couldn't support so many. In such cases, location is once again key to the retail's success. Opening a bar because it's a popular type, even though another well-established bar is just down the street, might be a stupid move. He actually said foolhardy, but I wasn't going to use that word. What does that mean? Foolhardy. This guy's wild, bro. All right, next subheading, the fewer the better route. Those who subscribe to this view are positioned at the opposite end of the spectrum from the safety in numbers proponents. Because certain retail types are relatively rare, advocates leap to the conclusion that there's ample room for more. This view also takes in the growing population thinking. A counter-argument, of course, is that there aren't more because additional stores cannot be supported. That is, there just isn't enough call for the merchandise. Check Table 2.2 once more, this time looking at the stores listed at the end of the table, such as, and then as type of store, number of stores, men's and boys clothing stores, bookstore, variety stores. You can also refer to the statistical abstract of the United States in your public library, where you'll discover some retail types in even shorter supply. Children and infants wear stores, fruit and vegetable markets, and camera and photo supply stores. And I'll flip it around real quick for you guys so you can see that. So yeah, the camera and supply stores is actually crazy. It says 3,000, but that was back in 2001. Honestly, it's probably lower now. Everyone just uses the phone for the camera. Our next subheading is the rapid growth approach. Another quite novel yet sensible method is to scout the retail sector for types whose sheer numbers show rapid growth in recent years. The assumption is that a high rate of new launches in a particular category may be considered a valid measure of current entrepreneurial interest. In the statistical abstract published in 1999, we find numerical counts for store types from 1990 and 1996 side by side. If we compare the 2 sets of numbers, we obtain a 6-year picture of growth, or lack of it, in the retail trades. Table 2.6 shows the results of such a comparison. I strongly recommend that you glance at the details before reading on. They're highly informative. Over the 6-year period, the most rapid growth was in these 5 categories. So that's a massive table up here, and it's basically just the same thing. It's just number of stores, percentage change over the years, and how many there is in each store. So there it is. There you are. Flip it around. I don't know if it's focused at all. Hopefully it is, but if it's not, I'll just tell you the number 1 on this list is eating places, then drinking places, and then the last one is hardware stores. And this is just in the broad range of the type of store. Of course, you would expect some growth in all categories because of our increasing population over these 6 years. Yet some types actually decreased in number. Among those that experienced the sharpest declines between 1990 and 1996 are hardware stores, women's clothing stores, and stationery stores. I don't know what a stationery store is. Maybe I should know. Maybe I should know what a stationery store is, but I have never once heard of that. For the present, you might be wise to shy away from these particular types. In such cases, we may make one or more assumptions. The field was overcrowded, consumer interest or need slackened, marginal operators fell by the wayside while the remaining establishments picked up much of the business. Then our next subheading is the check the failure rate technique. Each year, the Dun & Bradstreet Corporation publishes the informative business failure record. This booklet lists the failure rates per 10,000 operating concerns for various retail lines of business. Then there's a table here, 27. And this table just goes over the amount of failures per 10,000. So you can flip that around. Amount of failures per 10,000 and the type of store. So just more information. He just did a crap load of research, basically, and put it all into a bunch of tables. So that's what we get to look at. Of course, you should be aware not only that these rates vary from one year to the next, but also that they are based on failures, not on the much larger number of firms that simply discontinue operations. Consulting this table may help you minimize your risk of failure by avoiding lines that show a high failure rate. The retail lines with the lowest failure rates in 1997 were drug and proprietary stores, sewing, needlework, and piece goods stores, used merchandise stores, liquor stores, and jewelry stores. On the other hand, you can see from Table 2.7 that the failure rate for eating and drinking places at the top of the list was more than 3 times greater than that for drug and proprietary stores. So basically, just because there's more, obviously there's going to be more failures. So it's not really a good ranking of the stuff. All right, and we're getting close to the end of this chapter, so just hang in there, guys. Our next subheading is the biggest payoff method. These days, consumers often canvass banks for the particular long-term account that yields the highest interest, or perhaps they choose high-yield bonds or growth stocks. This kind of approach carries appeal for many business people. Indeed, the typical business owner is conditioned to seek a good return on investment. In this context, you should know about an excellent source of statistics on operating results for many different types of businesses. Robert Morris Associates, the National Association of Bank Loan and Credit Officers. They're noted for their annual publication of statement studies analysis. Operating results for selected retail businesses from their 1997 publication are shown in Table 2.8. The key column in the table for the biggest payoff method is, of course, the one-headed operating profit. As you'll note, these percentages differ from one business type to the other. The 5 retail businesses that yield the highest operating profit percentages in that year were, and then it shows just these little lists here after each paragraph. So it's saying jewelry stores, hobby toy and game shops, used merchandise stores, variety stores, family clothing stores. Those had the highest profit percentages. So jewelry stores at the top because they're making the biggest profit on what they spend. One problem with this approach, though, is the fact that the percentages can vary considerably from one year to the next. The retail sector, like other sectors, is in a continuous state of flux. I finally let some light in so I can actually see in here. And then we're on our second to last little subheading here, which is the top sales producers route. Actually, you may consider this method a takeoff on the rapid growth approach. Out of curiosity, I calculate the approximate average sales per store for the years 1990 and 1997 for all retail stores categories. With rising prices and an inflationary trend over the 5-year period, I both expected and found sales gains across the board. Here are the retail types that showed the greatest percentage gains: hardware stores, bookstores, drug and proprietary stores, shoe stores, family clothing stores. Incidentally, you may be interested in learning which stores were characterized by the slowest sales growth or lack of growth. This is floor covering stores, variety stores, household appliance stores, building materials and supply stores, and sporting goods and bicycle shops. I'd venture to conclude that these last 5 types, for whatever reasons, managed to keep up with neither the economy nor the times. And then this is our last subheading, second thoughts about the biggest payoff method. Recall that this technique involves checking through the operating results for different business types to find those with high percentage of operating profit. A major complication is the fact that inventory requirements differ substantially from one type of retailing to the next. Review the last column in Table 2.8, which lists the cost of sales, sometimes called the cost of goods, divided by the inventory for each type of store in median values. Median values means that while some stores' operational results showed higher figures, others were lower, and that those appearing in the column are in the middle. Note too that all data in the table are from firms with $500,000 or less in assets. So this is just like a big table that just shows. So it's just, I don't know how he got these random numbers, but they're representing the cost of sale and the operating prices for each field, basically. So you can see which ones are the top and which ones are the cheapest to run. So auto and home supply are the most expensive. is what this list says, in women's clothing stores is the cheapest. If your initial investment must be limited and is a major consideration, this factor could present problems if inventory requirements turned out to be greater than you expected. You can, however, work this factor into the picture by following a simple procedure. Here's how you can calculate a typical inventory. Let's assume you wish to open a bookstore. Refer now to Table 2.8 and locate the operating data for bookstores. It's the second store type in the list, SIC number 5942. You estimate that your first year sales will be $180,000. On the strength of this estimate, let's hope it's correct, you can determine your approximate cost of goods or cost of sales by multiplying $180,000 by 56.0%, as listed in the third column of the table. This works out to a COG of $100,800. Roughly then, if you reach the sales figure you have set, and if the COG percentage holds true, you'll have to buy $100,800 worth of merchandise at your cost during your first year. This calculation, however, doesn't mean that you'll have to carry this amount in stock all year long. The retailer buys goods for resale throughout the year, replenishing stock as it's sold. Take the figure in the last column that corresponds to your business, Bookstores 3.0, and divide it to your total cost of goods, $100,800. You'll have the approximate value of the goods you'll need to stock. In this case, it's $33,600, at cost, of course. If your inventory is close to this figure, at least you'll know that it's in line with those of the other merchants like yourself. Just to make sure you have this procedure down pat, here are several other examples I worked out for you from Table 2.8, all based on a projected first year sales volume of $180,000. Check your results against them. Then just has some of those, and it says total cost of goods, approximate inventory required. It's right there. Yeah, you can flip it around if you want. There it is. So yeah, pretty boring table, like the rest of them. This guy's just got the most boring research imaginable. And then we get to our last heading, which is the retailing of services. Selling a service or services to consumers usually poses more of a challenge to the retailer than does the selling of merchandise. For one thing, consumers can touch, handle, or examine goods. This is something they cannot do with services. This tangibility quality aids the retailer who sells merchandise. As an example, assume you're shopping for towels at a bath shop. After some searching, you locate the section on the shelves that houses the approximate colors you would like for your home. You then pick up several of these and proceed to unfold them to examine them more carefully. Most likely, you want to, number 1, see if you like the design, and number 2, determine whether or not the material they're made out of is thirsty enough for your use, whatever that means. Shoppers cannot do this with a service. Services are intangible. They cannot be touched or handled. They must be experienced. Moreover, services reflect several other characteristics that distinguish them from goods. These qualities call for a special attention by the retailer. For more information, see Service Retailers Need to Market Differently in Chapter 7. For now, refer to Table 2.9. It contains operating data for selected types of service retailers. And then it's just a table with operating expenses, percentages, and stuff for service businesses up there. Yippee. How exciting. But yeah, guys, here we are, helpful references, and I'm not going to read any of these because who cares? If you want to take a look at them, there they are. A bunch of random books. Then goes on to the next page, I think. Yeah, there's some there. But yeah, that ends actually the whole section 1 of this book, because there's 6 sections that each have, I was going to say each have 2 chapters in them, but there's one that has 5. So we've basically just scratched the surface of this book. But that was what retail sector should you go into, and it kind of just went over, you know, pros and cons of certain retail sectors, and then a bunch of listed like research, like numbers, profitability of certain sectors. And it's like, well, you could go for one there's not a lot of them, and risk the fact that it's not popular, you know, like nobody wants it. But going for something that's like really big and popular, it could be overcrowded, oversaturated, and then you're just like, nobody's going to come to you. You're just a new guy that's selling, you know, Totino's pizza rolls, and that's being sold at 10 different other stores that are trusted. So why would they go to yours? So like you have to offer something new. And it did a good job of saying like location is a big one that people don't really think about, like, because you could be just as good as the other store or worse because you're like new and they're like, we're not going to trust you. We're just going to go to Walmart. But because you're down the street from their house, they're going to go to your house because they don't want to waste gas and drive to Walmart. You know, and they're like, oh, new store just opened that has Totino's pizza rolls. I'm just going to go right down the street. So location is a big thing that you can kind of get the advantage over big stores because they're not going to build houses around big stores. Those are usually in districts that have like all the retail businesses in one big district. But there's these little businesses that just kind of sneak into neighborhoods. And so if that's what you're going for, like a little small business, you could sneak it into somewhere that's convenient for people that they would be going to a lot. Or somewhere that there isn't other businesses competing with you, you know. And you can take that into account when you're deciding your business type. Is like, what business type isn't around here that people would actually care about. But yeah, that was chapter 2, guys. Not quite as exciting as chapter 1, but we did it. We got through chapter 2. Now we know kind of ways to determine what kind of retail business do we want to do. For me personally, I would love to have a clothing shop, like selling like, you know, handmade clothes or antique clothes, you know, and I know the market's way bigger for women's clothing than it is for men's clothing, especially in a small town like where I live. But that's what I would love to do. And then also, a more recent idea that I was given by my friends, Nathan and Jade. We actually spent a collective like over $160 on Pokemon just a couple days ago. And so we've been talking a lot about starting like a card shop. We did pull some pretty nice cards. And it's something I've never even heard of before. But like, you can actually buy like a bunch of packs. Like we bought 30 packs or something for $160, $5 a pack. And we pulled some that if you get them graded, you send them in and get them graded, you could actually sell for $260. So like, that was crazy. This one here, this is the one that I pulled. I also pulled this one on my birthday, so not recently, but this one, hold on. This one's like 40 something bucks. This one I think was like $62 if it's graded 10, which is pretty good. That's better than I was expecting. Because in reality, you know, the pack this came from, I spent $5 on, even though we bought them in bulk, so 30 packs. But even if we sell that one, the $250, we're already making our money back on just one card that we pulled. Then we have all the other cards. It's like, we could just keep them or sell them. We don't even need to sell them. You know, we could keep them if we wanted to. But anyway, sorry for blabbering on about Pokemon randomly at the end of this, but I just wanted to kind of, you know, segue into promoting my video that I'm going to be dropping on our opening. I'm going to be editing that down, so when that's up, I'll put it in the description or something, you know. But just be ready for that, guys. And we're going to get kind of a setup, so hopefully we can do some more unboxing, opening packs and stuff on camera together, and then we'll see what we get, you know, put the values on screen. We can do that in the video, and then we'll just do like a rundown on this is how much we spent, how much we made back, how much we could make back if we graded them all. And so yeah, it kind of all ties into this retail aspect. And so we were thinking of starting a store. And so I've been looking into that, you know. You can get like a tax exemption license. You can sign up for it and make an official business. And if you have an actual in-person store, it's a lot more likely that distributors will sell bulk items to you, which is pretty much the same with all kind of bulk things that you're selling. So like, it's not just Pokemon, it's like anything bulk that you're not making yourself, because there's like restaurants, obviously you're making the food yourself. But if it's products, you know, like say you want to sell Cheez-Its, you probably need a license to sell Cheez-Its on your shelves, but you can buy from the distributors. And you won't be taxed on that if you have a tax exemption license, which is what would be very good to get. Whether I go into selling Pokemon or whether I go into selling clothes, you know, or whether I go into selling DVDs. I don't know. I can sell whatever I want. But getting that license there solidifies, you know, you have that. So now you can use that going forward in whatever retail you're deciding to do. So I wasn't actually planning to do retail when I got this book. I was just like, it was like mixed in with all the marketing books. Because I wanted to do marketing, like online marketing, brand marketing. You know, like I take a photo of this Xbox One controller from like 10 years ago. And I'm like, yo, Xbox One, guys. Buy the new Xbox One. Obviously, that would be a horrible ad because this is ancient. But, you know, with new products coming out, I thought that would be a great job to just, you know, I'm working with them and I advertise for them and then they pay me money because they're making money off my advertisement because that streams their customers that way. But I think working for myself, which that kind of is working for myself, but owning any kind of a company, that's like my dream, dude. And so retail has really just opened my eyes. Like, I would love to do retail. Like, I know people are like, there's some retail haters out there that are like, I would not work in a retail store. You shop from them all the time. You have to shop at retail stores. So why would you not work in one? I think, me personally, I'm just not really a service job kind of a guy. I wouldn't really want to be doing like construction or something. That just kind of sounds boring. And plus, the amount of injuries you can get doing construction. Like, I feel like everyone I've known who's gone in construction has gotten a life-changing injury, and that's what made them retire. They all retire when they like break a bone in their body and can't work anymore. So I'd rather not take that risk. Just me personally. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of inspire some of you guys in the comments down below. If you guys were to start a retail store, let me know what you guys would sell. And hey, if it's a really good idea, I'll steal it from you. No, I'm just kidding. But I'll reply to you guys. And I'll like your comments. I'll even send a heart emoji. Anyway, leave a comment down below. Whatever your retail store is going to be, you know. Maybe even come up with a name for your retail store. Cool little name. And I will vote on the best one. If you're the best one, I'll reply with a little trophy emoji. All right? And just so the comments aren't barren, I'm going to fully force my friends to comment. And if they don't, they're not my friends anymore. I'm fully cutting them off. I'm cloud chasing right now. Anyway, that was chapter 2 of How to Start and Run Your Own Retail Business by Irving Berstner. And yeah, let me know if you guys want to start reading section 2, chapter 3.